Greetings, Dark Crusaders! Lords of the Fallen 2023 is one of the few major Souls-likes I've never played, but with Lords of the Fallen 2 just getting announced, I figured now is the perfect time to finally check this one out for myself. I'm going in mostly blind, but I'm not doing it the easy way. I'm trying to beat the entire game without ever leveling Vitality, base health the whole way through as a complete first-timer. We're picking the Wretch, since it has the lowest starting Vitality in the game. Funnily enough, the Pyromancer equivalent class has the same low Vitality stat, which feels like an unintentional nod to the old Dark Souls 1 starting classes. And yes, I do the very original thing of just self-inserting myself into the character creator. I do this in basically every game, so don't judge me. There's a new veteran difficulty and a bunch of game modifiers now, like increased enemy density. I appreciate that these options exist, but since we're already stacking our own challenge on top of a blind run, we're sticking to Legacy, no modifiers. Quick side note, the options menu is a little janky, and the resolution scale defaults to 50% even on the cinematic preset. Got it looking fine after a few tweaks, but let's move on. Our starting weapon is a broken bucket. We will be having a lot of fun with this later. The ranged weapon system is actually pretty clever here. Holding the left trigger gives you different options depending on what's in your offhand. Lantern out, you get umbral tools. Ranged weapon out, you aim and shoot. Mine, fittingly, is a rock.
Oh, the pioneers used to ride these babies for miles!
As for the combat itself, light attacks, chargeable heavies, plunge attacks, blocking, dodge rolling, all the genre staples are here, and honestly, the movement is more fluid than I expected going in. They also opted for the tap the dodge button once to dash, twice to roll while locked on strategy. These buckets might not seem like much, but I quickly learned that the running attack is goated. Now for the mechanic that's supposed to set this game apart from every other Souls-like. 2 realms, everywhere, all the time. Axiom is our normal world, where Umbral is the realm of the dead you get pulled into when you die, and it's also where most of the game's puzzles and progression live. I've heard from a few people that this gets overused and annoying by the end, but we'll see if I end up agreeing. The risk-reward of this is genuinely cool on paper. The longer you stay in Umbral, a vision meter climbs, which spawns more and tougher enemies, but it also multiplies how much vigor this game's souls you're earning. Push your luck, get paid. Push too far, get swarmed. Withered health is also here, and it's basically Bloodborne's rally system, but without the time pressure. Vestiges are this game's bonfires. Leveling, boss rush, co-op, all the standard stuff you'd expect. And remember the rule, no Vitality. Everything else is fair game. Luckily, this game does increase your defense with other stats, so we do have some form of tankiness while leveling up, leaning into agility and endurance early on. Fast weapons, lots of stamina. Oh, and quick aside, souls in this game are called Vigor, which is not confusing at all. First boss, killed first try. But something about the combat already feels a little off. Hits don't quite land with the weight you'd expect, and parry timings feel incredibly early. File that away because it's going to keep coming up. Dying and respawning into Umbral is seamless, by the way. No trip back to a bonfire required. Two-handing works like Dark Souls 3 or Elden Ring. It's a stance you toggle, and these buckets are genuinely kind of sick. Like I said before, the running attack hits multiple times and it actually slaps. The game does have the charged backstab, opens up an enemy for crit thing from Bloodborne, but in practice, it doesn't work all the time. Is this a skill issue or just a bad weapon? Let me know in the comments. A few side systems worth mentioning. You can see which enemies killed other players and get extra souls for killing them yourself. Though we're playing offline, so that's kind of irrelevant here. There's also player-placed vestige seeds at preset garden spots, which is a nice idea even if it's limited to specific locations. Think of it sort of like a custom bonfire situation. Also, this guy named the Iron Wayfarer looks suspiciously like Gale. The environments of the game are pretty. Lots of reds, yellows, browns, and really good use of fire effects. Fair warning though, the palette's going to trend brown and red for most of the game. Also found the deflect imposter system here, which feels like another FromSoft game we all know. At this point, it's pretty clear this game is just a melting pot of basically every Souls-like idea that's come before it. Now for Pieta, the first real boss, and in classic Souls fashion, I nearly get her first try with no heals used, and then proceed to die to her a few times after that. This happens to me in literally every one of these games, and I know I can't be the only one. Again, the parry windows feel uncomfortably early here. We do adjust, but it just feels wrong. Worth noting, most bosses in this game run on a single health bar with a mid-fight transformation around the halfway point, rather than 2 separate health bars. The first time this happened, it startled me. Definitely gave me Millennia flashbacks. 3 tries in and Pieta's down. She upgrades our Estus equivalent afterward too, which is a nice touch. Now we get an actual plot setup. We destroy a set of beacons before something called a deer does something very bad or something. I'll be honest, the story isn't really landing for me so far, and the game hasn't really given me much reason to seek out answers or care about its world. I do love the general visual style of the game, such as armor and enemy design, however. We find a ring from a merchant that boosts our vitality, and this is tempting, but I'm still undecided on whether using this would be cheating and kind of ruin the whole run, so for now we leave it alone. There's also Molhu here, who is an Umbral merchant. He sells spells, combining Radiance and Inferno, and lamp upgrades. We're also finding these Umbral scourings things that are apparently meant to be traded with him, but that option's just not live yet. Our next boss is Scourge Sister Delith, and her gimmick is holy infused attacks that seem to mess with parry timing. It might just be me though. The buckets, once again, hit way harder than they have any right to. A charge attack into a crit takes her down. This next area, Pilgrim's Perch, is pretty well designed. There's good verticality and satisfying shortcut loops that bring you back around. This is also where the umbral mechanic starts wearing on me a little. The loop tends to be go in, grab an item or a lore bit or solve a puzzle, immediately want to leave again. Funnily enough, I'd actually considered doing an umbral only challenge run for this video. Turns out that's basically just a normal playthrough of the game. That said, the soul flay lamp mechanic is a highlight. Ripping an enemy's soul out as a combat stun is pretty satisfying, and it's doing a lot of the heavy lifting for both lore and puzzles. We work our way down this area some more until we run into the blacksmith. She's an incessant hammerer, just like someone else we know. Buckets also get their first upgrade here. I'm keeping a fist weapon as backup just in case, but spoiler for the whole video, that backup never actually gets used. This is a bucket only run, from here all the way to, well, you'll see, for the memes. As it turns out, there was an update put out called The Way of the Bucket, and being a bucket build myself, I felt obligated to chase this down. I said this was a blind playthrough, but I broke those rules for this part. Step 1, grab the broken bucket near the vestige of Shibuya. We already have a broken bucket because of our starting class. From there, it's specific emotes performed at the body, some dialogue confirming it's working, and then the real task. Find 12 prides of the Bucketlord, each one tied to a specific required or semi-required boss arena. You also have to turn these in batches or you'll mess the quest up like I may or may not do later. We end up picking several of these up naturally as we progress through the game. There's also one funny unintended consequence. Doing the bucket quest actually auto-summons an NPC ally for certain required fights, which means a couple of our solo boss kills weren't quite as solo as I'd planned.
My friend, finally we stand together again! Bucketry!
Worth it for the bit, but noting it for the record. Here's the twist nobody warns you about. The Bucketlord actually turns on you if you collect 5 prides without turning them in first. The game gives you zero indication this is coming. We found this out the hard way, and it locks us out of the final reward entirely. I will take some blame here. I looked up this quest and didn't read the whole thing all the way through, so kinda my fault. But, dear Bucketlord, maybe explain your own questline mechanics next time. But we will continue using the honorable weapon for bucketry. Now we have a bit of a mid-game gauntlet. Mistress of Hounds is a good fight, and the classic Souls elevator trick still works for fast resets. And yes, you can jump in the elevator for more airtime, because some traditions never die. Congregator of Flesh is where the no vitality restriction really starts to bite, no pun intended. His second phase has constant poison damage that chips away hard on base health. And remember, we're still bucket only here too. No, I'm not switching to something with better reach. We made a commitment. Around here, what I like to call the anti-climax problem becomes pretty clear too. Even a strong kill, a clean crit finish, a hard-earned win, it just doesn't land with the impact you'd expect. It's hard to put my finger on exactly why, but it's a consistent feeling across most boss fights in the game. Hollow Crow, though, is actually an impressive use of the umbral mechanic in the game. You need Soulflay or an umbral presence to actually damage the real target, but doing that exposes you to getting swarmed with no second life to fall back on. Good risk-reward design here, I really like this fight. Audacious Visage and Hushed Saint are both solid, fair, learnable fights. Hushed Saint especially has a couple of one-shot attacks, but it's consistent once you know the timing, and not too hard to dodge. The Chill Fief is visually gorgeous, really great snow and rain effects, but mechanically, this is where enemy density and reused enemy types start to grate on me quite a bit. Invisible archers with deceptive timing give me big Dark Souls 2 Shaded Woods energy, there are ice trail dogs, and there's a noticeable jump in enemy tankiness. These mimic moths are a creative idea, although I hate these guys with a passion. Oh look, they reuse the Visage boss as a regular enemy, kind of like in Dark Souls when they reuse demons. That's cool, I'm sure that won't get overused at all. This area is also where I kind of noticed the game just encourages you to run past everything instead of engaging with it. Calwrath, though, is where the cracks really start to show. Heavy reuse of past bosses as regular enemies. A few more good idea, bad execution bosses live in this section too. Sacred Resonance of Tenacity asks you to juggle 2 incompatible play patterns at once. Dodge a crowd while also hitting these fragile butterflies, all while eating a screen-covering instant AoE. A boss that could be great, undone by one attack. The Unbroken Promise has a strong first phase, but its second phase has an arm attack that's basically unparryable and has incredibly tricky dodge timing. And then there's Judge Cleric, Radiant Sentinel. The same story, again. Good bones, ruined by an attack you can be doing everything right against and still just kinda die to. Quick note here about the rune system. Runes let you reshape weapon scaling based on their slot shape, so it turns out my agility investment was a waste for the bucket specifically. Strength is the scaling stat we want for this one, so I decided to respec here. One quick highlight here, and you've probably seen this boss if you've looked up anything about this game before, Spurned Progeny. It has a genuinely creepy design and is completely fair once you learn the patterns. We survived this one with 7 HP left. That's about as close as this run gets. Now by this point in the game, there's a pattern that's impossible not to notice. Nearly every boss gets an elemental damage buff around 50% health, ground AoE puddles, and one big one-shot attack. At least for us. It stops feeling like a twist and starts feeling like a template the whole back half of the game is built off of. A few standouts either way. Tancred has a messy first phase, but the second phase transformation into Reinhold, a four-legged beast with separate stagger bars on each limb, is really well designed. Probably one of the better fight structures in the whole game. Abbess Ursula is basically Crystal Sage, but angrier and more mobile. Fair once you read her laser timings. And the Lightbearer rematch is a real highlight. Good parry windows, readable patterns, satisfying punishes. Probably my favorite fight in the game overall, even with some gimmicks in the final third. Gale, Iron Wayfarer, and Damaros are both fine, just unremarkable. More of the same toolkit at this point. Although the Iron Wayfarer does have this pretty cool mechanic where he mostly does wither damage to you. Castle Bramis is visually distinct in a few places, but mechanically it's still the same palette and the same boss design habits we've already seen. Now for the second to final boss, I guess, the Sundered Monarch. About an hour of attempts on this one, it was pretty hard. Phase 1 is manageable, gives me big Father Ariandel energy though, and Phase 2 ramps up pretty hard. Fast one-shot capable attacks, an awkward hitbox on his signature move, and the now standard half-health power-up with AoE and elemental damage layered on top. Although his AoE are a bunch of swords, which, you know, fair game. Our bucket gets it done. Same broken bucket from hour 1, still going strong. Really satisfying after an hour of grinding the pattern down, and honestly this feels like the right moment to point out just how far one starting weapon carried this entire run. And then, turns out the game has one more boss than I expected because of a content update that added a brand new final encounter, the Eidolon of Adir. Now, this fight crystallizes pretty much everything that's been creeping up over the last several hours. A boss that keeps breaking lock-on by phasing in and out, hitboxes that don't track logically, attacks with guaranteed unavoidable damage in certain situations, and the boss monologues for the whole fight, every single time, which makes every retry feel even longer than it already is. After a bunch of tries in time, I get through phase 1, but then he does this. Alright, at this point I'm making a call. I'm not going to grind out a boss, I'm not having fun fighting just to slap a 100% complete stamp on this video, especially when they added this boss post-release. The game doesn't deserve any more of my time, and I've already answered the question that we asked at the first. How far can you get through Lords of the Fallen on base health, blind, as a complete first-timer, with a bucket? And the answer is all the way to the final encounter, deep into a fight most players never even reach in the first place. So now for our final verdict. And I'm sure some of you will be disappointed with my opinion. But this game does have some cool ideas. The Umbral risk-reward loop, the limb-based Reinhold boss, the rune system, and apparently a starting bucket that's strong enough to carry an entire blind, base health playthrough from start to finish without ever switching weapons. That's either a testament to how good the bucket is or how little this game's damage scaling actually matters. Maybe it's both. But it's also got a lot of problems. Parry windows that feel earlier than they should, hitboxes that don't always make sense, heavy reuse of bosses as regular enemies, and a back third of the game that leans hard into good concept, one bad attack ruins it design over and over again. Not to mention using the same template for the boss fights after a certain point. Being in blind on base health for a first playthrough, it was enough to convince me of one thing. I'm not buying Lords of the Fallen 2 on day 1. I want to see how this one shakes out first. Maybe it's my own fault for playing the game in the wrong way. Let me know in the comments, but have you played Lords of the Fallen? Did any of this match your experience, or did I just have a uniquely cursed run? Let me know. And if you're new here, make sure to subscribe and check out some of my other challenge runs popping up on screen now.